Terry.
Yes, I unmuted myself, so you can probably hear me.
Yep.
Just a cherry salt and pepper grinder. The salt one is about 8 inches. The pepper one is about 10 inches. It's the chef's specialty hardware, and this is only the second one I've ever done. But it went to my daughter for a Christmas present, my daughter and son-in-law.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Thank you.
And it's
Very
maple?
nice.
All right. And just to get a better view on the screen, I have this blown up so the text doesn't show up, so everybody can kind of just whatever comments you put in your email, they're all in the gallery, but just to try to enhance the image here, I'm not showing them. So all right, and that's another Terry.
Okay, so this is I guess I would characterize it as a shallow bowl, not really a plate, but it's about 10 inches in diameter and it's only about 1¼ inches thick or so. The wood is red grandis, which comes from South America. And I turned it. I didn't really like it, so I ended up doing a little pyrography design that I kind of got out of free clip art and then modified. And I liked it much better after that.
So what do you use to burn it?
I have one of the Coalwood pyrography pens.
Right. No, it's very even. I mean, I actually, when I first saw this, I actually thought you might have lasered it, but no, it's very nice. That almost looks a little bit like sapele. Does it turn like a mahogany or something? Because it almost has that kind of flavor to it.
You know, I haven't really turned that much mahogany. It has a little bit of an open grain and it can be a little chippy. It's something they were touting as kind of a replacement for mahogany and stuff, because environmental replacement, because it's a farm raised tree, I think in Argentina or something like that.
Right.
And it's not super expensive. I just wanted to try it out. I got it at the hardwood store in Gibsonville.
All right.
But
That's
it
nice.
has, even though the grain is really even, with kind of a bit of a shiny finish, it kind of pulls out some contrast that I liked.
Right.
And no
No, I
orange
think-
peel.
What's the finish, Terry?
You know, I think it's probably just a couple coats of wipe on poly.
Yeah, that's nice. And I think
Was this from a plank or was it an actual turning block? Because you said it's only like 1¼ inch thick.
Yeah, no, it was an actual board. So it was about a 10-inch, a little over a 10-inch diameter or 10-inch wide board that was 6/4. So I just cut off a chunk, rounded it up and turned it.
Very
it's
nice.
nice. Yeah, no, and I think the pyrography really adds to the. I think it's a nice touch.
Absolutely, it's a beautiful job.
Yeah, without the pyrography, it was too very boring.
I think Rita's trying to say.
We were just looking up, red grandis is a farm raised tree that's it's one of the new hybrids. It's cypress, red oak, and cherry, I think. And a 40-year-old tree grows in like 10 years. And when you cut the tree off, the stump grows. So it's supposed to be one of the greatest whatever something coming up. But
I'm sorry.
I thought it was a eucalyptus variety, but yeah, it is farm raised, and you know they're kind of touting it as an alternative to the forest grown mahoganies and things like that from South America, and it's of course a whole lot cheaper.
Well, eucalyptus, when it grows straight up, and all the limbs are on the top, so there's no knots.
Right.
If you ever see a tabletop made out of it, it almost looks like plastic or something. It's totally uneventful.
Yeah, and you can see this doesn't have a lot of character to it, although it does have a little bit of grain.
All right, nicely done.
Thank you.
Well, fast
David.
scrolling, I think that really means it is going to be straight grain.
Bob Edmondson, what is this? I put it in here. I have no idea what I'm doing.
That is what I want you to tell me. I had nothing finished. I have all kinds of things that are kind of halfway done. And I was working on this and I thought, well, I think I'll just throw this out at the gang and see what they think and see if they can figure out what it is before it's done.
I think Bob needs to stop drinking before turning.
Yeah, that's dangerous. Alcohol in the lathe just doesn't work well.
Yeah, you got to watch it. It's that top left one is the jig I'm using, and it's basically a piece that's
The carrier.
the multi-axis, parallel axis to the main axis, and you take those pieces off and flip them around 180 degrees and do it again, and we're going to end up with something here, hopefully, at the end.
And
This
it's
one
going to
is-
be symmetrical. That's actually a pretty cool idea. The more I look at it.
It's going to be one of these human figures.
Nope.
All right. Do you want us to guess now or just?
Oh, you can guess all you want, and I'll bring it back next time or whenever I get it finished. It shouldn't be too long.
Is it one of those outside pieces that you put something on the inside of it? So this is the outside
You
shell?
actually could do that, but there's going to be some carving and some embellishment on it. The lower right-hand picture is a disc that I put these on, and you can do some embellishing. There'll be some more turning on it.
Well, if you think about this, Bob, this is a way to make four things that are exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Actually, I saw an article by a fellow guy by the name of I think it's Sigi Auger. He was a Swiss guy, and I read an article about him one time. He had this huge drum. He'd have like, I don't know, 8 or 10 of these things on there. He did different things, but that's the way he turned them, so they were all identical.
All right. Well, we look
All right,
forward
stay
to to next month and seeing what it is.
There you go.
All right, John Vafe.
There we go. Yeah, so a neighbor cut down an eastern redbud and to make way for a pool that they're putting in, and they said, could you make something that's been our favorite tree in the yard and we're sorry to lose it, but could you make something from it? And I looked it up, and eastern redbud is just notorious for cracking and splitting and having all kinds of issues. So I figured, well, maybe I'll use those to my advantage. So I did this natural edge bowl and then put it in a light bulb kiln, and it shrank like a old pumpkin. But the interesting thing is it opened up that crack between the sapwood and the heartwood. And my daughter said, hey, it looks like Mick Jagger's lips.
Roughly how big is it?
I saw that as a smile.
That it is, it's pretty small. It's 5 inches by maybe 4 inches high. It was kind of fun to work with. And then the second piece that I made is also from that same redbud tree. There we go. And this is a 1/16 of an inch thick. As you guys all know, it's kind of a race against time when you're turning that thin, and you know that it's going to warp like crazy, which after I got it turned, I immediately took it off the lathe and put it in the light bulb kiln. And this is what it looked like after 2 days, I think.
Did you put a meter to it when you started turning? I'm just curious what the,
No, I did not. I did not put a meter to it, but it was wet.
it
Definitely.
was spitting at you?
Do you ever spray any water on it while you're turning to keep it wet?
I have. I didn't in this particular case. This is not a very big piece. It was, I think it's about 7.5 inches or 7 inches in diameter. Started out a little bigger than that, but there was a pretty good sized crack I had to get rid of. So I whittled it down a little bit. But no, I did not wet it. I just tried to turn fast before it started getting too far out of round.
Isn't redbud a shrub? Was there something big enough on it actually to turn? Well, obviously there was, but I thought redbud was actually a shrub, not a tree.
No, it can be a tree. I got 2 in my backyard, and I think I know what I'm gonna do with them. Yeah. That's beautiful, though.
I just got a red bud Burl, and that's, I'm interested to see what happens. If I'm listening to John say it's a real delight to work with. So it'll be interesting to see what this Burl does.
Most red buds, when you cut them down, you'll find that the center of the tree is hollow because they rot from the inside. And so it's hard to get a decent sized piece out of it. Now this tree was maybe 20 feet high or 15, 20 feet high. But I got a couple decent pieces out of it. And it is kind of interesting wood. I mean, it's colors are pretty interesting. And I do like all the warping that took place.
I have a piece in the garage that's about 42 inches long and probably 14 inches in diameter. And it's a beautiful color. I agree.
Wow. Yeah.
I have a neighbor who cut one down about 3 years ago that was like that, Richard, maybe 14 inches in diameter. And I got some gorgeous pieces out of it. I don't know if you guys can see that. You probably can't see. Yeah, there.
Yeah, that same kind of red and yellow.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous stuff.
Yeah,
Pretty.
it's a pretty wood.
So, that's nice.
Yeah, really nice pieces.
What finish is on there, John? Is there a finish on it?
You're muted, John.
Sorry. It just has walnut oil on it.
Okay. Very nice.
Yeah, the piece I turned is a gold and a kind of a chocolate brown. It's gorgeous wood.
Did you also, Richard, did you also notice how the nature of the wood cracking easily?
Well, I left it as a whole log, so it's down in the garage. It's got a big crack on one side, but yeah, it's still big enough pieces to turn. It's, like I say, it was a large piece that was what do you call it, grafted at one point in time, and they just decided they wanted to replace it.
Yeah, nice.
Very nice. All right. Steve Driggers, you on? Might have to unmute yourself.
Am I on now?
You are.
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Well, first of all, welcome. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's good to be back. I think I owe Bob some dues. We'll straighten up.
All right, good. No, we're happy to see you here and happy to have you back. So tell us about your piece.
Okay, well, this was a Christmas present for Kathy, my wife. And it started with Rudy Lopez's demo, the virtual symposium this summer, where he was doing natural edge thin stem goblets. And I thought, well, shoot, I can turn little bitty stems on something, but I decided to go with flowers. And you can see kind of a progression. The ones that are unfinished there are more recent than the earlier ones. They're getting thinner. The wood is red oak, just some that I had. So I made a batch of flowers, bleached them, dyed them, and began to put some color on them. The color here is a little bit off from just as a result of the picture. The stems are a little bit greener. But once I had those guys, I bent them with steam, so they had a little bit of a curl to them. And then the trick was to get a vase for them. I needed a wide bottom base that would stand up. So I copied a wine carafe that we have, and then bleached and then dyed and finished those with lacquer. I turned them from both sides. I think there are tools that you could reach in and do that sharp a curve and that, that wide a pitch without going through the bottom, but it's not worth it. I just cut a plug that matched and inserted it at the end. So
That's my kind of hollowing.
Yeah.
yeah.
So on the ones that are on the right that are colored, did you just, is that dye that you just dipped?
Yeah, that's trans-tint.
Okay.
I bleached them. You can see the color in the wood. So I started off by bleaching and then several different layers of dye.
Okay. Now that, I mean, the colors really make it. Very nice. So what was the reception when you gave it as a gift?
Kathy liked it.
Good.
Reception was good, but it's a challenging piece. The shape of all of it is challenging. The thin stems and then the shapes of the vase to get the curves so that they look right. It's is quite a challenge. So I've ended up making several more just to get a little bit better at it.
Yeah, very nice.
Really good though. That's beautiful.
No, and the photography is, I mean, it's really a good photograph of that as well. I mean, I think very good all around. The backdrop is just a roll of gray paper with gradations. It starts at white and gets darker as it goes up. Right.
The camera was just my wife's smartphone. And we at the moment don't have a real camera, so I took it with that. So it's handheld smartphone picture against a photographic background. And it's just
Very nice.
single window illumination on the left, and then I left the room lights on for a little yellow light.
Good, nicely done.
Thank you.
Steve, just to comment on that. So our June demonstration of the demonstrator, Greg Gallegos, is going to show us how to turn thin stem goblets and how he gets them to curve and so forth. So that, Steve, that might be interesting to you as well, to see how he does it, to get those stems. He does goblets on the end instead of the flowers like that. I think these are beautiful, but he shows how he gets it to the stems to bend as well.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of fun actually to get a wallpaper steamer and set up a little steam chamber and horse around for most of a Saturday getting the stems to bend.
I've never heard anyone mention fun and wallpaper steamer in the same sentence.
Well, I wasn't steaming wallpaper, so we're good.
Well, nicely done. Wow.
Yes, this is a work in progress. I'm sorry you all can't see the dimensions on this, but I'm remembering it's more or less an 8-inch sphere. It's about 8 inches wide by 8 inches tall. It's a piece of red cedar. The outside is done, and I'm still working on the wall thickness. And I think the next photo is of the bottom. And I'm trying to decide if I'm just going to do a ring foot on it, or if I'm going to do 3 little feet out of that ring. But the graining is just beautiful, the grain patterns.
Right.
I don't see any cracks.
Nope, no cracks.
You're lucky.
No,
But those walls are maybe 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, and I'll take them down quite a bit from the inside.
no, it's probably, yeah, I'd be worried with cedar. I never seem to get it back in the chuck the same as it was before I took it out. So it'll be interesting to see how whether you get that to sit the same way you had it before when you start to return it.
What is the finish? The
Right,
it looks very brown at the top.
right now, it just has sanding sealer on it.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing what it looks like when it's done.
So, Bob, was that done with the chuck and expansion mode?
No, it's gripping. You can see the marks
Oh,
on
yeah.
the center there. It's gripping it.
All right.
I vote for 3 feet.
This is the piece of more than mildly spalted maple of some sort, and it came to me as a gift, and it was one solid chunk in a cone shape. And I cut the bottom of the cone off, did the bowl, and then used the bottom of the cone to make a pedestal. And it's just, you know, turned out to be kind of a cool thing, I think.
Yeah, and Bob, and this is just my view of this, but when I looked at this, I think the kind of the sharp edge at the bottom, I don't like straight lines, and it almost looks like the outside is just a little too straight for my. I think it's a great. I mean, the base makes it stand off nice, but I don't. It just a little bit of curve on those sides, I think, would have made it kind of flow into that base a little bit better. But that's just my opinion of it.
Well, you probably got a point. What you see that burn line, but there's also 2 burn lines underneath that and 2 burn lines underneath the base.
Right.
And the straight line is where I cut the bottom off of the pyramidal piece that I got.
Right.
So it's really the base is hooked onto a flat surface.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah. And also, I mean, dealing with spalted wood, sometimes your options, it really does limit your options sometimes. But
and actually, from a design point of view, I noticed that you have a flat surface on the top, straight surface, you know, at the rim, and then another straight line as you go into the V. So it kind of collects a whole bunch of straight lines. So yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think they accentuate each other. But again, you know, just my opinion.
Well, thank you for noticing, because that was all intentional.
I agree with Alan.
Good at that. I am pretty good.
Did you have to do any stabilization of the wood? I noticed it looks like a little punky over on the upper right side.
I did not. It was sanding sealer and tung oil and a couple of coats of clear lacquer, and then buffed out with Renaissance wax.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, I agree with Alan. I like the straight lines. The combination, the summation. I like that.
I'm out.
And the base too. I mean, they all pick each other up. So, yeah, thanks.
And Steve, you can see the dimensions. I've forgotten what they are.
Yeah, actually, I don't have them up on the screen now. So it reduces the size of the image if I put put the notes up there. But
I'm thinking it's ballpark about just shy of a foot in diameter and about 8 or 9 inches tall in total.
Right. Okay. All right. Thanks, Bob. All right, Craig. Welcome to you too. If you probably have to unmute, Craig.
Bob, that was 5 inches tall, 7-inch diameter, according to your notes.
Okay, you got it better than I remember it.
Is Craig on?
He was here.
There we go. How's that? Is that better?
Yep, we can hear you now.
All right. This is, we actually started this one 2 years ago during the last breakout session. And I was kind of trying to play around with a little bit more detail in the turnings themselves and play with some intersections and stuff. But the piece is 46 3/4 high, 20 inches wide, and it's 2 7/8 thick. It's maple with a bronze background.
Gorgeous. How do you know it's not upside down?
You never know. I have, yeah, I do let people, if they want to, I'll change where the mounting bracket is if they want to turn it horizontally or whatever.
Do you cut the sections after you're done turning?
No, it's all done before. I do it before I turn it because I've noticed sometimes that you can lose an important part of the detail of the turning. So this way, if I need to move a center, you know, make a minor adjustment in it so that I don't lose something that I feel is critical in what's going to be the negative space.
So when you, like on when you have an item that goes through the cut, are those two pieces cut and then put back together while you turn those two pieces?
No, normally I have a waste block in there. I'll predetermine the gap, so it's usually either 1/2 inch, 3/4, sometimes bigger, but I'll put a waste block in there. It's not necessarily to help with the jumping of the space, but the waste block helps you reassemble the piece correctly.
Right. No, that's.
I like a lot of your work, but for some reason that I think is my favorite. That is beautiful.
Thank you.
That really, really works.
Thank you.
Hey, Craig, can you also talk a little bit about the background? Because I don't think a lot of people know how you do that.
Okay, the background, it's basically it's a piece of plywood, and I've recently started texturing it. So basically what it is, it's textured wallpaper that I glue to the background and then reseal it. And the metal is actually comes to me in a powdered form, and it's mixed with a polyester resin, and then I can spray it over whatever I want to. So it's real metal. I can patina it if I wanted to. It's a lot different than the metal reactive paints that you see out there, because this is in a powdered form, so it's real metal.
How do you get the textured look on there?
It's wallpaper.
Oh, it's the actual wallpaper. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Very nice.
Thank you.
That's spectacular, Craig. That really is the way that all matches is just really phenomenal to me.
Thank you.
To try to make that all work. So
Yeah, I wanted to do something a little different than just the normal concaves and rings. So this is the first attempt with that. I have a walnut piece that we just finished that has 3 centers on it, and I'm pretty happy with the way that one came out. So I think it's going to be a new direction. I might do more detailed turning and throw some rings in there as well. So we'll see where it goes.
Does the maple stand off of the brass a little bit?
Yes, it does. I put a 3/4 inch block behind them to raise them up, just to give it a little bit more depth and shadow lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
Do you turn two of the pieces at a time?
It depends. I think I did this one all with everything on the lathe at once. I do occasionally disassemble a piece just to get a couple pieces on there at a time, because the bottom center, there's really no point in having the other two pieces on there because it's by itself. So, that's going to be one of the last centers I do so that I don't have to worry about trying to put the thing back together. So you kind of got to plan everything out, which order you're going to do pieces in.
Craig, do you go right at the big format or do you do a small scale test version?
No, I do go for the big format. I've got a stack of 16th inch clear Lexan discs, anywhere from 2 inches up to 36 inches. And I just sit there and start stacking discs on the sculpture until I come up with a pattern that I like.
Got it.
If I'm still undecided, I'll take a picture of it from overhead, play with some other patterns, and then in a couple days I'll just flip back and forth through my phone and decide which pattern I liked better. All the discs are sharpied with the diameter of the circle, so I know what sizes and how to lay it back out again.
Oh, great idea.
Well, that's great. And I'm glad you're here with us tonight. I mean, I look forward to seeing more.
Thank you. Yeah, this is my third Zoom meeting, so I'm figuring it out.
Well, your stuff's better for Zoom. You don't have to carry it in.
Right.
Yeah,
That's right. I was thinking that exact same thing, Norm, when I was putting the information in on these, and it's like, well, I bet Craig's happy he didn't have to carry that.
Yeah.
So how big is that piece?
It's 46 3/4 tall and 20 inches wide.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure.
Preston.
Greetings, everyone.
Hello there.
This is obviously a candle pedestal. I call it a pedestal because it's a real fat candle, a 4-inch. I think it's from Bed Bath and Beyond. My wife buys them, and she said, "Is there any way that we could make them different heights?" So I came up with this, and then you can see on the bottom there's a metal top for the candle, and I made a recess in the bottom to hold that, where you don't have to put it somewhere else and then you can't find it. So it's pretty challenging to do, even though the shape is not really sophisticated, but I think it all seems to work together. The top is a little narrower than the bottom.
So you said different heights. Are you making them in sets, or is it just a single?
Yeah, this is just a one-off right now.
Right. Okay.
What'd you say the metal piece was for, Preston?
It's the top of the candle. When you buy the candle, it comes with that top on it.
Oh,
And I think that's one way to put it out, maybe.
okay.
They're also scented, so I think there's a seal on the bottom of the lid that helps it not evaporate when you don't want it to, right?
Right.
I really like the idea of that recess for the cap. That is brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
That's nice.
I'm gonna steal that, by the way.
It's about 5 by 5, something like that tall, right? So this is a thought cellar that I made where the cellar part is offset. I used one of those. I think Rockler sells them. I forget what they're called, roto pins, where it's a piece of metal and there's 2 pieces of wood with a washer between them.
Right.
This is something I finished probably a couple of years ago. I haven't been in the shop in a while. My wife had knee surgery, so I've been taking care of her. So I just looked around and said, okay, what cool pictures do I have? And I don't know if this is cool or not, but again, it was challenging for me because the silver part is offset. It's not right in the center of the wood because of the pin. You know, the top just rotates. It's flat on the bottom of the top, and then on the bottom left here, you can see a rare earth magnet, and there's a corresponding one on the top of the lid too, the underside of the lid. So if you get it close, the magnets are strong enough just to pull it back together where it's supposed to be. And on the bottom, I made a piece of cork and inserted that in the bottom so it doesn't slide around.
And what is it? I can't remember. Is it like 4 inches in diameter? I still recall something like that.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's about 4.5 by about almost 2, maybe 2.5 high.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, Reed, you there?
I'll be here.
All right.
It's just a piece of cherry burl that a friend of mine gave me. He found out in the woods and cut down the tree and gave me the burl. It's just an interesting piece. It's got, it's not live edge at all, but it's got, Danette's picture might show a little bit more of the inclusions that were part of it. And some of it held on and some of it didn't. And that's just wipe on polyurethane finish.
Did you did you put CA or anything in the bark to try to keep it on there, or just not worried about it?
Did not put anything on it.
Okay.
He gave it to me probably a year ago, and it's just been drying up in the shop. So what stayed on, stayed on.
So often with cherry burls, they grow completely around the tree, or at least the ones I've seen. Was this just a slice off the, so the main trunk of the tree is not in there anywhere, right? This is just trying to figure
That
what
is
part of
correct.
it.
This is
Okay.
just a burl that was attached, and he chopped it off. Probably about another, I don't know, inch and a half would be on the bottom side of the bowl as you see it now.
Right. Okay. Well, you can't go wrong with burls. That's nice, but boy, there's a lot of bark in that to try to keep on there. They did a pretty good job.
Well, I find that, it stays on pretty good. But when I do the wipe on polyurethane, I just gob it into the bar and all the little inclusions. So I'm sure that there's a certain amount of adhesion that comes with that wipe on polyurethane.
Right. No, that's nicely done. All right. Jim.
Another cherry burl. Like you said, Steve, this is a burl that went almost all the way around the tree. My neighbor got it somewhere and he wanted some bowls turned. Kind of interesting.
So is the trunk of the tree anywhere in this, or is this just the burl cut off the side?
I'm looking.
Because the reason I ask is I have one sitting in my garage in my shop. The burl goes all the way around it, and I don't know what to do with it.
The burl goes pretty deep into it. I think the yellow on the side here is part of this burl went 75% of the all the way around. But I think the yellow part on the side there was part of the plain wood, but it
Okay.
was pretty burled all the way through.
Okay.
You never know what you're going to get out of them. You always wish you would have done something different after you've cut it. But
Right. Yeah, that's a nice looking piece of burl.
he was happy.
Yeah, good.
Made a number of things out of it.
Steve, I had a bunch
How
of
big
those
is it,
cherry
Jim?
burls that go all the way around the tree. And I left the trunk in them, and that's when I first started turning. Actually, I didn't know what I was doing at all. And most of them though turned out really well. They didn't crack, like out from the center all the way out to the edge or anything like that. I mean, there's some inclusions like you can see here and cracks within it and so forth on stuff, but they all came out really nice.
Jim, how big is this, Jim?
About 8 inches by 6 inches, something like that. I got a bunch of other burls out of it, but this was typical of.
Yeah. That figure right in that you're showing there and the inside of that bowl, that's really
It's
nice.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Adds a lot of flavor to it.
The other thing is cherry burl grown down here. This is probably grown in red dirt. Up
Right.
north, cherry burl is tighter and it's darker. It's grown in black dirt and it grows slower. Tree takes twice as long to get the same size as it does down here. So there's,
That's a cherry pearl from
Yeah.
me.
yeah.
See the difference in color? Can you show
I've
it?
got I don't know if you can see this. This is a cherry burl from Maine. It's a much tighter grain and a total different wood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Completely different color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old is that, Jim? That piece you just showed us?
This piece,
Oh,
5 years.
5 years, something like that.
Yeah, did it darken up from when you first turned it?
No, maybe a little bit, but not too much. No, these are pretty dark.
That's what I experienced with all the cherry that I turn. It gets a lot darker after 6 months, couple of years,
Yeah, you can tell the difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is pretty dark.
Show it again while you're talking.
Do what?
Show it again while you're talking so we can see it.
Oh, you want up here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the side of it. I could take in fact, I got a picture of it if you want. I didn't think it was. Anyway.
That's nice.
Oh, after the demonstration last week where they cut these things paper thin, I thought I'd show this. I got this burl in Utah at the symposium out there. And it's big leaf maple. And I kind of liked all the points. So in contrast to what we saw last week, I thought I'd throw this in. I'm not sure I like it or not like it. I love the wood. And it's so damn nice. I don't like to cut it. Keep all I can, flip it over. During
The color contrast is really nice.
it's gorgeous stuff. All that stuff. You can't get a bad piece of big leaf maple burl, I don't think.
No, it's nice. And so, yeah, the challenge is, and I'll show you the one I did, where you leave all that figure on there, but it's on the bottom. So it's
yeah.
so, yeah, but no, that's the grain is just spectacular on it. It's very nice.
I'm not sure what I would do if I had to do another one. Whether I do it thinner or a thinner wall bowl or whatever.
Yeah.
Also, as you start, you can kind of see the upper right. As you start making this more bowl shape, you go into a pocket, and that would be the rim of the thing, which would be a pocket. And if you got into that, you'd have to take way more out of this other side. So I kind of kept the tops of it.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like a
Yeah.
pie, Jim.
It could be, yeah, meringue.
Burl pie.
I would also picture it as like twice the diameter of the actual cup part of it to be pretty too. Again, the color contrast of the wood's really striking.
Is that, as I recall, was that about 12 inches? And I can't remember, Jim, how big that one was.
Something like that, 10 or probably 10 inches by 3 inches or something.
9 by 3.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
All right. Ron.
Good evening, guys. I'll make my excuses up front. I am Woodturner started this summer. And actually have had 4 hours instruction by our own Bruce, who got my son and I in this place on the lathe this summer. This is a 10 by 4 inch Sweetgum Bowl. This was a commission piece by my single biggest patron, who's my sister. She insists on paying for shipping on anything I do. She wanted a rustic bowl that she lives in Maine and likes to collect pine cones and different things like that. So gotten this wood from a guy I met this fall in Franklinton. He sells firewood, but he has a couple of tree surgeon stuff that will drop things off to him, and anything that looks interesting, he'll shoot me a picture, and if I want it, I can go get it, type of thing. And this, what interests me was the pictures he sent had a lot of this spalting and color in it. Of course, the entire outside was covered in some type of fungus, mushroom, the whole 9 yards. So started turning this wet. I use silica desiccant to kind of dry things. So it was rough turn, dried a bit, turned a little bit more, dried a bit more. And then it's finished in just sanding sealer, homemade sanding sealer, and some beeswax. The reason I wanted to show it, you guys can see in this picture, there's a lot of, it was really, really punky, all around on the 2 sides. And I'd not really worked with anything like that before. And just soaked it in numerous coats of sanding sealer, which kind of made it rigid. But I was really looking for ideas on what else to do other than like maybe epoxy and stuff like that. I have another piece that of this that I've got on the lathe now that I've actually bought some of the Minwax wood hardener, trying that.
So Ron, this is Steve. If you contact me separately, so I use Cactus juice stabilization for really punky pieces. You have to be careful with it because it's expensive, and you don't want to use it on, it costs money, and so you want to do it on rough turn pieces. But if you want to get in touch with me, I'll certainly give you an introduction to that process if you want.
Okay, appreciate that, Steve.
It does allow you to really use some otherwise unusable punky wood.
Yeah.
So there are other methods, like you said, the sanding sealer, or sometimes I use just Seal-A-Cell finish, that tung oil in there, enough coats of that. But when you get that kind of that sawdust in those, like that, it's really, I mean, CA in those areas is probably what what a lot of people do. But
I actually didn't think of that. Yeah, and I was originally going to try to carve all that out of there and everything like that, but she said she wanted rustic, so that's rustic.
Okay.
Yeah, with the bugs and the sawdust and everything in it.
Yeah.
I have another suggestion for you, Ron. I don't have the vacuum pump and stuff like Steve does, and I saw on the internet where people were using epoxy diluted 50% with acetone. And I don't know if you can see what I'm holding up here, but this is the most punky, bug-ridden piece of wood I've ever played with. And
Hold
when
it
I
up a little
turned
bit
it,
higher, Jerry.
There you go.
There you go.
I can't see my picture on the screen, so I can't see where to put it. So I took
Steve,
this
can you
thing.
stop sharing for a moment so we can see a big screen?
Let's see here. Why wouldn't it let me stop sharing?
Pause sharing.
Well, it's hang on a second.
Just use speaker view.
Yeah, if you go to speaker, it's not, hold on a second, I just have to. It's not letting me stop sharing.
It was just a thought. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Yeah. So when I initially turned this thing, it just chipped out or just almost crumbled, basically, and had big holes and stuff in it.
There it is.
And
Wow.
then I took it and I took some epoxy and diluted it with acetone and just painted the inside and the outside with that and let it dry for a week or two until I could no longer smell the acetone. And then I put it back on the lathe and it really cleaned up nicely as far as all the tear out and stuff. Of course, the bug holes didn't clean up, but I could actually turn it and get a smooth surface. And so it's my cheap way of doing some stabilization on some really punky stuff without having to have vacuum pumps and chambers and cactus juice.
Terry,
That's a
did
great
you
idea.
use the acetone after you mix the epoxy?
Yeah, that's what I did. I mixed the epoxy together and it was like a 2-hour epoxy. And then I just dumped in about 50% acetone, and you really have to stir it well, to get it to dissolve. And then once it dissolved, I just painted it on there inside and out.
Terry, does the epoxy like penetrate in as well? Is it?
Yeah, well, that's the whole purpose of the acetone. It really makes it thin, and that helps it penetrate. The epoxy would just sit on the outside for the most part because it's not thin enough to go in. But the acetone basically, dissolves it, and it's a carrier to get it into the wood. And from what I could see, it went in more than a 1/4 inch on each side.
Oh,
I saw it on the internet. I didn't invent it, but I tested it to see whether it worked. And at least in this case, I think it worked pretty well.
that's great.
It's nice. That's good information. Thanks, Terry.
Terry, there was a comment here that I see somebody thinks it's oak. Can you show the wood from a close-up? It looked like it had the little oak lines.
Rays. Yeah, it was cracked.
I'm pretty sure it was maple.
Show the hardwood. I think that's where we saw the lines.
Sorry.
Oh, here to the right and left, where
No,
the hardwood is.
this is Ron's.
Yeah.
You're seeing,
That's what we're talking about.
you're
Yeah.
seeing
Why this gentleman told me it was sweet gum, and when I picked it up, there were smaller branches and things from that had the what do you call those little like prickly pod things all over.
Gumballs.
Yeah, gumballs all over it. I have enough in my yard. I try to forget the name. But yeah,
Porcupine egg.
exactly. So that's
That's sweet gum.
yeah. I also thought it.
I've tried
Yeah, it looks
plenty
like-
of sweet gum and oak, and that is not scum. That is red oak.
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't look like sweet gum with the rays on it, but
It looks
who
like red
knows?
oak.
Yeah.
We've also learned that we run it through the microwave now before we start this, because about a week later, one of those things came out.
Oh.
Anybody know how to erase the biography Woodburn Sweet Gum on?
Now, no one will know the difference. So I just leave
Now,
it.
again, my sister won't know the difference.
Yeah. 3/8 gouge.
Sandpaper.
And this was this just started out as a small walnut bowl I was doing. It was from a blank that I purchased, and it was wet, or it came to me sealed in wax, so it's fairly wet. It's about 4.5, 5 inches across and 2.5 inches high. As I started turning it, I was originally thought to put in a lid that would be recessed a little bit, but I got really thin on it. It's about 1/8 of an inch thickness on the walls. And so I said, well, I'll try to take some flat stock I had, which I thought was cherry. I not inherited, but got a lot of 4/4 and 5/4 rough cut lumber from an older gentleman here in Raleigh who happened to pass away and gave a lot of wood to us before then.
It's the Zoom meeting.
So I turned the top, first time doing that, first time doing any type of finial, and it's all just finished in boiled linseed oil with Mylan's friction polish, and on the Beal buffing to try to buff it up a little bit.
It's a real nice finish.
Thank you. Anybody have any idea what that lid may in fact be? Does that look like a cherry? It just really looked dark to me after I put the oil in the finish on it. Really reddish brown, more than what I've seen cherry look like from where I grew up in the northern states.
Could be walnut.
Okay, thank you. Guys, I can't hear anybody.
No one's talking right now.
We're here.
We're all trying to figure out what wood that is.
Yeah.
What, the lid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Paduk.
Paduk?
That could
Gotta
be.
be Paduk.
Yes.
Okay.
I
It's
agree
got a
with
lot of
the
grain
lawn.
pattern in it though for Paduk. Paduk is pretty plain grained.
Not always. I've gotten some that are figured.
It's got a lot of figures in it.
Did you get orange dust on you when you turned it?
It was a reddish orange dust.
Paduk.
Paduk. Definitely Paduk if you had that.
Well, I think I have a lot of that.
It's nice stuff.
It's nice
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, it turned nice.
And it's not super expensive, but I like to use it actually in contrast, like you've done it with another wood.
But Norm, I haven't seen that grain on Paduk. That's very nice grain for Paduk.
Yeah. Bigger, if you get bigger pieces, the thicker they are, the more likely you are to get that kind of figure in it.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you.
Steve, we've lost the sharing.
The red dust on everything is
hang on.
definitively Paduk. The
Earth to Steve, Earth to Steve. Come in, Steve.
That's who I saw talking before and couldn't hear anything.
We can't hear you at all, Steve. And the sharing screen. Okay, we saw your finger go up. The sharing screen also went away.
Tom Doe, you're up next, just so you know, when we get it up.
Okay.
He's probably trying to get it back. That was
Yeah.
the give me 1 minute signal.
If it was the index finger, not the middle.
That's
There we
right.
are.
If it was
There
the
we
middle
go.
finger, we'd
There you
go
go,
down.
Tom.
Software.
Okay, this is just a little, I had a tiny piece of my neighborhood wood and I was practicing trying to hollow something out. you know, try to get even thickness on the walls. And I've had several pieces of this small wood. This thing's only 3 inches in diameter, 3.25 inches tall. And I've struggled a little bit with the lid on this because the first lid I made, I couldn't get off without prying it off. And there was no way to get a hold of it. So I did a second one here just to try a lid design, but I'm undecided if I like it. And that happens to be walnut, but it was just because I had a piece of walnut within reach that I used it. I'm trying to remember what the wood is on the bottom. I guess that was, yeah, that was Paduke. And that you'll notice at the bottom, there's 2 layers of wood. It turns out when you're hollowing out the inside, it's real easy to go a little deep. And I got into the tendon and I thought, no problem, I'll just put a base piece on. But I tried to kind of get a concave bottom so that it would sit on the rim and not wobble. And I was a little too far into the tendon, so I put a hole through that. So I added the second piece and was very careful that I didn't puncture it again. So it was a challenge, but I was learning a bit about when you're hollowing the inside and trying to get it smooth around the corners, that you have to go deeper. So when I drilled out the middle on my next one, I didn't drill as deep as the one I'm working on now. But on this one, it was pretty interesting. But I'm still not really happy with the lid design on it.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
So this was, but it was fun to do because I'm trying to learn how to do stuff that's hollowing out the inside and getting a little better at it with the consistent wall thickness is what I'm really working on. I'm probably a little under 1/4 inch thick on the walls.
Have you considered not having a lid?
Oh yeah, I've done a couple with no lid, but I was purposely wanting a lid.
Oh.
I did some Christmas ornaments that had, you hollow it out and then you put a finial on it. But I was trying to do something with a lid on this one because I wanted something that I could put on there and it would be one of those real tight fitting lids. So I was practicing doing that, and I was actually having some success with that. But that's when I learned that if you don't have anything to grab onto, you can't get the darn thing off.
I think what might work there, by the way, is Paduke for a more flat type of lid with a little finial to grab it.
Yeah, actually, I've got another one that I'm working on now. And what I did on that blank was I sliced off a part of the blank. So I'm going to use the same wood for the body and the lid. And then I'm going to use a black wood for a little finial in the top that you can grab onto. And the nice part about it is, I didn't show it tonight because I just was working on it today, but with cutting the finial off the top, the grain matches from the body to the top. So it flows into the top, and that's really, that one's come out real good. And
I would recommend you don't go for a tight fit lid when you're mixing species.
Yeah.
They're going to dry differently and it will never fit the same way.
Or spalted wood and not spalted wood. So, all right.
Yeah.
A comment. The spalted wood is gorgeous and I like its shape, but I share your concern about the top. It needs more reveal or overlap. And other than that, you know, I wish the walnut were darker. I mean, the last 10 years ago or so, I've been disappointed that walnut is not as dark to match the nice black spalting.
Yeah, I have a collection of walnut that was cut in here in North Carolina somewhere. I don't remember exactly where, but I had a chance to get about 450 board feet of it, anywhere from 5/4 to 16/4, and I was originally going to buy it, but I ended up making a makeup table for the lady, and she took that in trade. So I ended up with a whole pile of wood, which I've been using off for a number of years now, but I think I've got a lifetime supply. The only problem with the thicker wood, though, is it tends to be from the center cut on the tree, which is typically what they do. They don't bother to cut the pith into boards, you know, so that ends up being a post, but some of it's pretty good.
All right, we need to move on here.
The one quick suggestion I would make is if you go back to the other, is follow the line of the bottom. I think it would, you would like it better if you follow the line of the bottom.
Okay. All right, thanks.
All right, Norm.
Another cake stand. I've got a few of these that I want to finish up. This one is actually done at someone's request. It's full size, so it'll hold a 9-inch cake, a little over 9-inch diameter. 2-piece again, fitted with the hardware, so it screws and unscrews. Like I mentioned last time, I like to sometimes try to captive ring. But can you back one sec, Steve? Where I was turning that bead, if you look on the left-hand side, there's about 5 little ambrosia holes right there. So
Yeah.
I've decided, no, I'm not going to do that.
No.
Oh, chicken.
Yeah. Not much luck with that.
What's finished?
One thing I wanted to try and show, if the camera here will show it, is that this had some very interesting chatoyance, which I've seen in a lot of woods, but not in spalted maples. I don't know if you can capture it right around that knot.
Yeah.
It's just a pretty bit of figure that surprised me on that. I got to other thing, when you use your vacuum chuck, don't go putting finishes or sanding grit on the backside, because the vacuum pump pulled it through, and now I have to redo the top side.
Wow.
Norm, is this stable when there's a cake on it and people cut it and take a slice?
Yeah, so the bottom is pretty hefty. That rounding at the bottom is kind of, it's a bit of an illusion. It's got a nice stable bottom, so you can actually serve cake off of it. May not be able to cut into it terribly well unless you keep focused on the center, but
the way the bottom transitions into the pedestal is very well done, particularly if it's with a 2-piece system like that. That's the curve just flows right into it. That's very well done. I like that.
Oh, and a 9-inch cake is not big. I'm just looking. That's a small cake.
Yeah, well, that's what was requested. I'll make bigger, but I figured I'd start with what somebody wanted.
The German cakes are about 14 inches in diameter, so that would be pretty unstable.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
You Germans and your cake.
So how big would the base have to be? Right? How big would the base have to be to hold that thing up?
That's why I was wondering, Norm.
Norm, I think
how big is the
a normal cake plate is about 11 inches. And if you look on, eBay, and look for the glass tops that you can buy to go on your cake plates, you'll find out a consistent diameter that you can buy just to the tops that go on there, and see your cake through. And that's what you probably want to gauge your standard cake plate by.
Okay. Yeah, somebody asked me to make one and he gave me the dimension he wanted. The base is about 3.5 inch wide.
It looks great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been watching Star Trek recently, and the top part of that is very reminiscent. Okay.
Well, if that's the top part, then this is one of the nacelles. How's that? Very simple walnut box. You were just talking about a pop fit. Got a nice little pop fit on that one. Main reason for doing it, I've done boxes. I'm not necessarily a big fan of them, but they're fun to do, and they're a good beginner class. And the town of Cary asked me if I could do a remote class, so I wanted to basically build up some video footage of turning a simple box. The only reason why it's here is because it's one of the 2 things I've actually turned in the last month. I also liked how the blank happened to capture just a nice bit of sapwood.
Yeah. And if the other one was Star Trek, this one is from Alien.
Oh, this is the nacelle. This is the nacelle. One of the 2 nacelles. All right.
Again, nice curve. I mean, it just, I can't imagine the challenge of doing a interact or a video class like that, but good luck with that.
We'll see how it goes.
All right.
Yeah, it's a box. It has an inside.
So these are my images. This is a willow oak. Chapel Hill is full of willow oaks, and they're all 80 to 100 years old, and many of them are rotten at the feet. So the city and private people are cutting them down. And I'm not all that keen on oak because my experience has been that it splits quite a bit when it dries. Yeah. But the house owner in front of whose house this huge oak grew was so fond of her tree. She gave me a piece and wanted some pieces turned. So recently I bought the Lyle Jameson hollowing tool, and I have not hollowed pieces before. So this was a good time to use that. So I just tried to do different pieces, and this is what I got out of it. And I must say, I actually like the oak. While oak doesn't have all that much color to it, I love the rays that you see with the different cuts. So what I did in this piece that she gave me is I did the heartwood to sapwood in different angles so that I would see the rays and the color distribution. You can see on the left-hand side, the heartwood is at the bottom. You see a little piece at 3 p.m. of that natural edge gourd. And in the back, the roundish one, the sphere one, you see the dark heartwood, which is not finished on this image, at the top, in front at the top, and then the one on the right-hand side also is at the bottom. The natural
That's not roundish. That's a perfect curve on that big back one. That's impressive.
That's
Well,
nice,
thank
very
you.
nice.
And it was indeed Norm, but I turned it wet, so they're all distorting, which is completely acceptable to me because that's part of
The
the
one on
character.
the lower right looks really nice.
Thank you.
Oh, dude, to me, that's just, those are perfect curves.
Those are stunning stuff.
Great shapes. Great shapes.
Well, good. I like it as a set together, and the owner of the property where the tree grew has 3 daughters, so she wanted to keep one and give one each to her daughters, but somehow I think they all need to stay together. As individuals, they may not be all that attractive. There was I don't do natural edges very often, so that was an experiment. And I made a little mistake that I put the sealer cell finish. The left one is finished. I put the sealer cell on the bark as well, which has made the bark really shiny and not the natural bark color or bark consistency and look. I didn't like that, but that's a learning curve.
It'll last a lot longer though.
Yeah, does it stabilize it so it doesn't fall off?
Yeah, the seal cell will help hold that together. But what you can do, maybe if you could try just taking some matte finish spray and spray it on that top, just mask off everything else if you want. And it would probably break the gloss off that, or maybe even just some steel wool on it on a.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's I've experienced stuff, and I just use steel wool on that when it gets too glossy on the bark. And then you take an air compressor and blow the steel wool shavings and dust back off of it, and it looks pretty good.
Does the steel wool not rip off the bark? Because this bark is pretty rough.
Yeah, you just or you can even use like a little brass brush, and you just do it real easy, and you can dull it down.
We're talking about 4/0 steel wool, not the stuff you use on.
Yeah, real fine.
Or a white Scotch-Brite pad would also work on that.
Yeah.
You don't need much.
I'll try that.
You know, these look a lot like what Pascal Odette does, except that he now carries it one step further and does sandblasting to where the softer wood goes away. So that may be something you can do in the future as far as texturing goes.
And Richard, I want to do that, and somebody gave me an old blasting cabinet, a little one that was in his garage for years. But there's so much to learn about wood turning and surface enhancement. I need to take it step by step.
Well, look on Pascal's website, and he may give you some pointers as to how he does
I've
it.
seen it. It's beautiful. It's incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it looks good.
Yeah, wasn't there something about sandblasting in the most recent issue of the AEW's wood turning magazine? There was an article about that very subject of sandblasting and making the finish that way. It looks intriguing.
Yeah.
All right.
And then this is an image I wanted to show. This is also Willow Oak, and there were 2 Willow Oaks taken down in downtown Chapel Hill. And I got this, what I call a double crotch from each of them. This is the second one. These are huge trees. The diameter at the double crotch where they have come together is probably about 30 inches or so. Wow. But I want to turn something where maybe I have 2 of the feathers in a big 20 or 22 inch bowl. One of the people where the tree was cut down on their property, they wanted a 22 inch bowl from it to have their tree as a permanent thing.
A bowl or a couple of platters. Looks great.
Yeah, so it will be, Richard, I agree with you. It will be a flat, kind of flat bowl or a slightly deeper platter. Yes, it won't be a deep bowl. I agree with that. So I need to, Richard, agree with whether you think that too. It needs to be sliced horizontally through the pith. So you can make one out of the top part and one out of the bottom part.
Yes, absolutely. Just, put you a piece of cardboard, cut a disc out of it that will just barely fit in there, lay it on top and draw the circle, and then cut the limbs off so that you don't have so much extra laying around, and then set it up so you can cut it right down the middle. And then most of your figure is probably going to be towards the center of the wood, center of the pieces. So I would probably turn them so that the figure would be at the bottom of the bowl.
Yes.
Because it's going to be revealed that way.
Yes.
But yeah, that looks perfect. Beautiful stuff.
You really, Stephanie, you want to make sure that it's balanced when you do that. And you want that crotch, you want the feathering to come right down through the middle, because if it sits off to the side, it doesn't do justice. I mean, it's still pretty, but if you can get that centered, the feathering centered in the middle of it, it just makes it look so much better. And I would definitely, like Richard, I'd definitely go with a platter rather than a bowl.
One thing I would add to Richard's proposal is don't cut it round first, split it first, because then you'll see the inside and be able to center where you want your circle to fall.
I agree with you, Norm. I think that you want to leave it large, but you don't want to leave it, you don't want to cut it with all those pieces hanging off of it.
Yeah.
There's some point you want to cut it back. So leave it large and then split it like Norm says, and then decide on how you're going to cut it. But it's perfect.
Actually, I think the best suggestion, Stefan, would be to drop it off at my house.
Well, Stephen, I actually wanted to ask you because my lathe is a little too small for this. I thought I could turn it on your lathe. Thanks for the offer.
For a price, I'm sure we can arrange that.
Come right on over. I'll be glad to set it up for you.
I have a question about that. Would there be any risk or benefit to when you go to split it down the middle to be a little bit off center so you have like a thicker part and a little bit shallower part, give you more flexibility in what you turn?
It's just hard to skip the pith with two forks like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always a risk, but you know, this is what we do. So
yeah, I'm just looking at the flexibility if you had a little thicker and a little thinner, whatever. Okay.
All right.
And then I wanted to quickly ask you guys, so when a crotch dries or the feathery edge dries, they must dry very unevenly and must crack quite a bit. Any comments on that and how to minimize that?
Dry it slow. You know, so if you're doing a platter, a consistent thickness throughout, and just slow it down.
Okay.
It may not crack. And the thing is that crock has held the entire tree for 50 to 100 years. It's actually pretty stable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. I have
Thank
a
you.
comment on that. There's several different ways. There's seal-a-cell. I often seal the edges with tar or more recently epoxy. But really my comment is this is the second time in this gallery view I've heard of the what I'll call business opportunity of recovering or turning something from a tree cut down on someone's property. Just in the last year, I've had two families who know of my proclivity with epoxy come to me and say, oh, we cut this 3-inch thick slab out of this tree that is growing on grandpa's property for years. Can you make something out of it? But it's split. It has this big V-shaped crack in it. And I go in and I fill it with colored epoxy to stabilize it. You know, if you couldn't stabilize it before the crack, and then you can turn it on a lathe. But there is a lot of demand for this.
Or a river table.
Yes, or a river table.
All right, we could talk about that issue. That could be a whole meeting. Richard.
yeah, this is a piece that we were having a talk at the Woodturners Association of Great Britain the other week, and it was on chessmen. I had not turned any chessmen at the time, so a couple days before I started looking through all kinds of chess sets and elaborate designs, this, that, and the other, and because I really wanted to put together a chess set at some point. This piece, I just settled on this design basically from the 2/3 of the way down would be consistent for all the pieces, maybe a little shorter for some as you go down to the less significant pieces like the queen and bishop and knight and the rook. But I turned one piece real quick. This is the king. It's out of cherry. This is some wood that I got from Mike Smith that he had cut into little pieces that he had in a grab box. So I just said, well, I need to get rid of some of this wood I have in the garage. So I tried it. It turned out really well. This is a very nice piece of cherry. It's drilled in the top 1/16 of an inch, and that's a 1/16 inch tenon of hard rock maple cut into the cross. I turned it to as opposing cones and then cut it flat with a knife. And then I'm not sure what I coated it with, probably with Dr. Woodshop's pin turning, yeah, stuff, because it dries very quickly, and I was trying to get something done for the discussion. So that's it. I like the beads are 1/16 inch, and I think there's a 3/16 inch there, maybe, yeah, something like that towards the bottom. But it's just chest piece.
Nice, thank you. I wait till you try to turn 32 pawns or 16 pawns.
Oh, I'll do it. It's not a problem. I have plenty of time. I don't have a lot of, time that I can spend, doing all of them at once. Okay, next one. This is a piece of elm that I got from a tree we were cutting down in Durham. A very tall tree, had been there for a long time. And I was taking Cindy Drosia's Twisted Box seminar last weekend. And it actually ended up being a mistake, because if you don't cut straight across the cylinder, you end up with a, when you cut out the little section to make the top, you end up with pieces that don't match. And that's what happened in this case. The top, when you put it back on, didn't match the bottom. There was I don't know, probably a 1/16 of an inch difference. Maybe not, maybe it's 32nd. But anyway, it looked terrible. So I went and I had a piece of Patagonian rosewood that was sitting over there beside the bandsaw. So I cut a ring out of it, or a slice out of it, and made it into a ring. And cut a piece that fit over the, what do you call it? The lip for the top. And also cut a lip on the bottom that would fit in the bottom piece. And then once I got it round, I put it together and I marked the 3 sides and put it back on the bandsaw and cut it close, not too close, but close. And then came back and put them together and sanded all of them together and to 1500 grit. And it really feels nice and smooth. I then decided where she put a button on top, I decided not only to put a button on top, but because I really didn't like the look of just a flat going to a button, I decided to leave that little raised tenon. I cut it so that, it's kind of a little raised area. And then the button is out of koa. And the koa wood that I got off eBay. It's some 1/8 inch thick sliced pieces. And where they had marked as defects is actually where all the figure in the wood is. And so what I did was I cut a circle out where the defect was and made the button. And you can only begin to see the chatoyance that I can see in the piece. It's just lovely, lovely wood. And the last little feature is on the bottom. I didn't like the fact that when you had these twisted boxes, they sit flat on a piece of, on a table. So the tenon on the other end, I also, I cut it away except for about a 1/16 of an inch, maybe 3/16 of an inch. And there's a foot on it, not only where you can sign it, but it raises it up off the table so that when you sit it there, you see that definition of the flat bottom. It gives a shadow line, and I don't show it very well in this picture. This was a rushed picture at the last minute to get it to norm. So that's that piece.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Super recovery.
Yeah.
A very nice piece, Richard.
Yeah, it was a piece that I pulled out of the lathe. I was going to do something else with it. It was 8 inches in diameter, and it cracked right in half. So it was a
Yeah.
piece of firewood at that point, and I said, well, let's practice with Cindy.
All right, Ted.
Yeah. So I just wanted to show this piece that I'm working on. I got some more work to do on it yet, but it's a piece of elm, and I cored 4 other bowls out of it. And the other 4 bowls were fine after they dried, but this one, I got some very large cracks in it. And it was so beautiful spalted, I didn't want to throw it away. And it seemed like, the biggest one, the most valuable one. So I've seen a lot about these bow tie inlays to repair cracks and so forth. So I bought a kit for it and gave it a try. And it came out pretty well. I'm still going to glue the cracks together with CA. I haven't done that yet, but repaired it with this, with inlay kit that I got from Rockler actually. And then that strap you see on there, I actually thought of the strap after I was well into it, but it's just a tie down strap, and it works incredibly well because I've been trying to use clamps on bowls in the past, and it's a nightmare, to try to get to work and still be able to do something on the bowl. But this tie down strap, you just put it on there and ratchet it up, and it doesn't really take nearly as much tension as you think, and it pulls it right together. So it works really well to do that. And I'll come back with it when I get it finished up, so you can see the finished set of those bowls. But I just thought I'd share that with you. And the other thing I'll share is that the inlay templates that I got, they're acrylic, plastic, and I glued them down to actually take a router out for the inlays. And I put tape on the bowl, I put tape on the template, and then used hot glue to secure it. And it's really solid, and it works really well to do it like that. So just if you guys are interested in that, there's a couple techniques there that might help you.
Hey, Ted, are you not afraid that using CA glue will discolor the wood?
Well, I'll put a sanding sealer on the wood first.
Okay.
And if you do that, then the CA glue doesn't stain it, the wood, because it's already sealed.
Yeah, I also have a little pipetter that I got from Amazon. It's just the smallest little, plastic pipetter that you put down in your CA and pull it up.
Yeah.
And you can do a really fine line with it, but I've noticed that it stains it really bad.
I'll put thin CA on first, so it soaks into the crack deep. And then I'll put some, I'm gonna get some black CA to match the spalting. And I think if I do that, between the spalting and those cracks, you probably won't see a lot of difference.
Okay.
That's great figure in that piece. Boy, it's certainly well worth saving.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of wood. I mean, I did the pictures more for showing the inlays and the strap and stuff, but I'll try to do a better job of the pictures when I get it finished up.
All right, thanks.
Ted, what's the diameter of that?
It's about 18.5 inches, I think.
Wow.
It's pretty good size, and it's about 8 or 10 inches tall, something like that. So
yeah, definitely worth saving.
Yeah.
Nice salad bowl.
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty big salad.
Well, a dinner salad for the whole
I think
crew.
it'd be good for like I think it was Ron was saying putting pine cones in, maybe, I don't know, but anyway. This is just some napkin rings I made on commission. A friend of mine has, I actually sent them some 4 napkin rings for a Christmas present. And they came back and said, hey, can we get 4 more? And they showed me a picture of of the ones that they had, and they were on they have a pine dining room table that's it's stained, but it's kind of, it looks more burnt than stained to me. But they said it was stained, and so I said, well, would you rather have some napkin rings out of pine instead, and I'll burn them. And because I was thinking about Lars, and so they said, oh yeah, that'd be wonderful. So anyways, I did those, and so I made the rings. I used burning iron to do all the work on the ones that have that, and then afterwards, after I parted them off and sanded them, the inside and the ends and so forth, I took a torch to them and burned all of them. Then I put a finish coats on them. And then there's two different photos there. One, or I don't know if you have 2 or 3 photos there. You just got the 2?
Just 2.
Oh, okay. Well, I took them on 3 different backgrounds so that you could see, and there's only 2 there, but you can see the difference in the backgrounds and stuff, how it changes the looks of those napkin rings by using that.
Definitely better on the darker background, Ted.
Yeah. The other one I had was actually on this, I made a wood chips shavings background, and it looks pretty interesting on there too, but I think the black one comes out the best.
All right, nicely done, Ted.
Yep.
All right, down to the last, my 2 last ones. I want to remind everybody that we will do a wood raffle at the end of the meeting tonight for all those who are still here and are current with their dues. So stick around for that. All right, this is my first attempt at nested bowls with a hybrid, or coring with a hybrid blank. It's a maple burl and aluminite resin, and I learned a lot. You can see there's a gap between the biggest bowl and the next one. It's because I found that when you core through the resin, you have to be really careful about the temperature, because as soon as it gets heated just a little bit, it gums up, and so I had a pretty nasty catch. It actually broke the tendon off the bottom of the big bowl. I had to glue that back on, and then I lost I was intending to make one more, so I lost that next one in there, but it was a learning experience. I have another one being cast right now, so but this is once I got through the first one. The other thing with the one-way system, it's nice because it's got those chisel shaped cutters on it, and I actually, for that big one, I ended up changing that cutter. I have 4 cutters, so I sharpened them all, and ended up changing that cutter twice during that first initial core, just to keep it sharp, because it also reduces the heat. But you just have to slow it down. Well, you can still keep your speed up, the rotation speed. What you have to slow down is your feed rate, and you have to evacuate the chips more often than you would with wood, because it just, again, that resin just softens right up if you're not careful. So anyway, that was just something fun to experiment with the first time that I've done that.
I like the pearlescence you have and the color contrast with that. Is that cherry burl, is it?
I believe it's maple.
Really?
I'm not
It
positive.
looks like cherry, but anyways, whatever it is, the contrast between the blue and that pearlescence in that wood is really good. I
looks
really
beautiful.
like
I
that
agree.
a lot.
It's beautiful.
Steve, what pigment did you use?
It's a combination. Well, it's a Luminite ocean blue and and then the interference blue powder. And then I was trying to do something. The lighter color there is just clear with sparkle gold powder in it, I had the piece that it floated up in the mold. And again, you don't have much time to work with this stuff, but it actually floated up on me, and I had to at the last, well, just before it was about to set, I had to press it back down in there and put weights on the top of it in order to, so I didn't lose the whole thing. And so the the gold didn't, it was supposed to be all the way around, but it didn't end up that way. So
Came out beautiful, but I have heard, and I've had the same problem where all of a sudden it floats the last minute and you're freaking out. It's like an I Love Lucy episode. But I have seen where that's actually helped a lot because it mixes up that resin at the last minute and you get those curls. It came out beautiful.
yeah. Now, I mean, I actually had it glued down to the bottom, and I had it glued a little bit off by small spacers with hot melt glue to keep it so it would fill in on the bottom.
Mhm.
And that it just, there was enough, I didn't put enough hot melt glue on it. It just popped it off. So fortunately, it was before I buttoned up the pressure pot, so I was able to close it. But
Was the
Either way.
epoxy colorant a powdered colorant or a liquid dye?
both. So I used the ocean blue dye. Is a liquid, and it's really concentrated. It probably has 2 drops in almost a gallon or half a gallon of resin. And then the powder, it's a pearlescent powder. And so that what you see, the pearl in this is from the pearlescent powder that is mixed in with the dye. So it's a combination of the two.
Okay, I've only gotten that pearlescence with the powdered dyes. Okay, great. And then how far did you sand the epoxy and what did you finish it? Did you have to take this up to 2000 or something?
I always sand up. So I dry sand to 400, and then I wet sand to 2000, and then I use automotive polishing. I use the rubbing compound and then the white polishing compound. It's just turtle wax, and then and these were stabilized. The wood was stabilized, so there's no finish on there other than that.
Okay, thanks. Great. Looks great.
I like that little floater in that second to smallest bowl too. That little wood floater piece that you got in
looks
there.
really nice.
That'd be great. You know, if you in the future, if you can figure out how to put more of those in there, that looks really cool.
Yeah. Well, the piece I'm doing now, hopefully we'll have more of that because it has more of the spikes in it. So we'll see what happens.
Steve, I'd love to see the piece before you cord it. Do you have any pictures of that you could share?
I probably do, but not handy.
Okay.
I will.
Just sometime.
Yeah. Okay. I can do that.
You can add it to the gallery. You can check it out later.
Yeah. So after Phil Rose's demo the other night, I had a Burl cap that I had actually cut a big piece of Burl down into make charcuterie boards, and this was the piece that was left over on the top, and decided to try it out. And I did this with hot melt glue and wedges, and it worked fine. And then I used the acetone. I was really worried on the Burl surface to be able to get that hot melt glue off it, but it came off fine. I have this sitting on these brass legs right now, but I'm not sure I like it, so I haven't figured out what to do. But it doesn't sit on the table, so. That's the bottom. There's no tenon or anything on there. It just that the bottom is completely the natural Burl spikes on there. So like I said, I'm not crazy about the legs. I need to do something different, but it was just trying to do something. I like incorporating the metal into some of this, but I think I may just go with some neutral wood and make it a little bit lower as well. But that. Again, that was
that sounds like a good
Pretty
idea.
please.
You said acetone.
I'm sorry,
denatured alcohol, right?
Denatured alcohol, right?
Yeah.
It's denatured alcohol. Terry got me thinking about acetone. But yeah, that's so it's about 12 inches. The overall piece is about 12 inches by 9 inches, and it's about 2.5 inches thick. And you can tell there's parts of it that are very thin. There's holes in both the bowl piece and in the sides. You can actually, the rim in places is so flexible, you can actually just flex it in your hands.
It really gives it a nice effect though.
Yeah.
Ed, I've heard that acetone also works to help take off this hot melt glue.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have never tried it, but I've heard that.
So, and again, I had a lot of hot melt glue, and I probably had 8 or 9 wedges holding this thing on because it was such a weird shape, and I just had it onto a backing board. I'll show some pictures at some point on that. I have some pictures of it in progress, or you can check out my, those of you on Instagram, you can check out my Instagram feed. I have the process on there, but well, I had the little spray bottle that I use for, I bought at Michael's for doing spray and dye. It's just a little, it's like 3 inches tall and a little pump spray. And I didn't have a dropper bottle. And all I did is I just sprayed it on, and those wedges just popped right off. And it took the glue with it. And what glue didn't take just came right off. And you can see that Burl is very fibrous and stuff. I was really worried about it coming off, but I had no trouble at all. It just came off right off. So.
Steve, I don't know whether you know much about acrylic, but you could use clear acrylic at the bottom, right? And make a foot out of it so that you can still see the wood through it. It's just a question of how to shape it, since I don't know whether you can still put this on the lathe on a vacuum chuck.
Yeah, it would be, there's too many holes in it in order to use a vacuum chuck. So no, it's done. I think I might just put some small wooden, just some nondescript small wooden pegs in there just to hold that up, and probably a little closer to the table as well, because I think that the metal legs detract from it. So, or maybe even just some acrylic dowel and something like that, so it stands up. But anyway, it'll sit on my bench for about 3 months like this, until I look at it about 100 times and try to figure out what to do.
yeah.
You know, I think it's the brass, not the fact that it's metal. You might want to try flat black paint on that.
Right. That's a good idea. I already have the legs made. They're just slid into holes right now, so they come right out. But yeah, I may just try just paint them black and see what happens.
That, or you could choose to do a Cindy Drosdia type, foot on it. One of those little pedestal type foots. So you just have a single point, and it raises up off the table, from that single point.
Yeah.
It's just
and obviously preview what it'll look like closer to the table by taking those legs and bending them.
Yeah.
Steve, I would think about maybe doing some ebony, like a tapered dowel.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, I'll probably try about 6 things before I decide on what to put on. I like the center spindle, but the problem is that the bottom of that, there's a big void right in the middle of this thing, and I only have about 1/4 of an inch on the bottom of that bowl to work. So
you can put a ring at the top of the pedestal that fits your holes just perfectly.
Yeah.
And it kind of disappears into the piece. So that may work.
Well, Steve, I think you need to give the piece to me and let me try to figure it out.
Well, as soon as Stefan brings me over the wood that I'm going to help him with, work out a 3-way trade there. So, all right.
Volunteers here.
Hey, Steve.
Shorten the brass and use something like, I don't know, flat black, or even just heat them so that it's black.
Yeah.
It's just, I think I like that. I just agree that a little bit shorter and a little bit less shiny.
Well, I'll do my 6 different options, and I'll show them side by side someday, and we'll look at it.
Steve, we've been talking about using hot melt. You could use like a vacuum chuck cone and hot melt the top of that to it, couldn't you? Kind of turn the bottom, or do something with the bottom.
Right. Yeah, I probably could. Yep. Yeah, it's so fragile at this point, Jim. I'm scared to put it back on the lathe.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, there's just not a lot left to it. So.
No guts, no glory. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So we are going to do a wood raffle for a $50 gift certificate to our wood stock. And just a reminder that we are having a wood sale March 20th and 21st, Saturday and Sunday. And I'm not sure, the sign up, I believe, is on the website. Bob, is it up?
It is. It's active and you can go sign up right now.
Okay. But prior to that, we're going to pick one winner tonight for $50 worth of wood, and you can just get in touch with Norm, and he will meet you over there and let you pick some wood out. And again, it's going to be for everybody here except for the board and people who have not paid. It's just for people who current on their dues. So Norm, why don't you do it?
Sure enough. There's Jim, just so you know, that's what $50 wood at our store looks like.
That's a pretty good haul.
That's a pretty, yeah, it's not those two platters on the back of it. It's just the stuff in the red square. All right, so we got all the names. If you don't see yourself, but your dues are paid up, let us know. But here we go. Gary?
You here, Gary?
Yeah, Gary was here.
Gary, he's muted.
Here.
You win.
Hey.
And you just paid your dues. Good.
Welcome.
Timing is everything.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
All right. So Gary, just get up with Norm, and we will. You can just email at WGNC at ncturning.com if you want. If you don't have his email address, and we'll arrange for you to get out there and pick up your stash.